feeling like I'm academics.
I didn't make a call out to a lot of people in the music industry or the podcast, music, whatever we do, whatever industry you call that. I wanted them to talk about the JayZ thing. I'm not too sure if that was received well. You know, I think people have a great way of taking what I say out of context. You know, me asking people to comment on something qualitatively like they do everything else makes them believe that I need them to say a particular narrative, like, yo, JayZ is a pedophile. That's what they're expecting me to say, or that's what I'm expecting them to say. No. I just want qualitative conversation. You know, these days I feel like we live in this age of transparency. It's just like, you know, I think it would be a different age and a different media space and landscape when Jordan retired. I think if Jordan retired, if Jordan was the greatest player ever, or let's say it's LeBron, if LeBron won 2 rings in Miami, and right after that, when people are expecting him to go for his third, he's like, you know what? I'll quit. And if there were rumors that maybe this guy's a gambling addict, maybe he's in gambling debt, maybe something else is going on, maybe he got secretly suspended, there'll be a lot of conversation about it because these days the media really picks at everything. I'm only asking for the same type of transparency when it comes to like this JayZ thing. I'm not saying JayZ is anything. I don't know. I'm very honest and open with, you know, again, there's a whole generation of artists that I think I've covered them and I've lived and grew with them in terms of their career. I've covered every aspect. I've talked to these people. I've talked to people around them, their labels. You know, if people ask me, like, if you ask me certain things that may have not been reported in the media, but if you ask me stuff about Chief Keef or Uzi or obviously 6ix9ine is a homie of mine, but like if you ask me about the people who I've covered intimately, maybe I wouldn't hop online, and that's not me being fake. Maybe I wouldn't hop online and say these things, but if you're like, yo, I heard like da-da-da, like not many people know, I might be able to tell you like, nah, that shit really happened. You know? What does that matter? It matters that because I was there, because I was tapped in, I have the knowledge to not necessarily be an authority on it, but be able to speak about it. What I've asked of my colleagues is just, yo, what's up with Jay? Like, you know, I think the conversation with Jay was Jay a fucking weirdo? Was JayZ a weirdo for being attracted to these women who, number one, all were desperate for music careers very early on and when they were young? And did he, I'm not saying prey, but I mean, did he target these women when they were on the cusp of turning 18? That's the conversation. Does anyone want to have it? Nobody wants to have that conversation. Now, the thing is, I keep telling you, it's better to be liked than to be right. Because if it was someone we didn't like, right, we would have that conversation all day. The reason why I called on my colleagues, they're older than me. They lived through the era. Some of them, they were very close to Rockefeller. They had a relationship. They've heard things. And we're not saying let's go write a narrative based on gossip. But we should probably start to unpack some of these things because I do look at every person that was older in the media space. I look at y'all a little bit odd. Remember I told y'all I'm really forthcoming with all the relationships I've really had in this shit. When I was on Everyday Struggle, that was like really, in my opinion, my the first introduction to the industry. Soon as I get there, I remember there's something with Joe and Complex, so I'm doing it with a bunch of guests. And one guest comes on, it was like, yo, we've been listening to you, like you're dope, whatever. And I'm like, yo, well, listen, shit, I never thought I would meet you. I never really thought I would, you know, the industry would give a fuck about what I'm doing. But great, I'm glad I'm here. And they're giving me the lowdown on the industry. And this is what happens. Like, these guys, they know what's going on. They're giving me the lowdown. And it was in 2017, the lowdown that I got, extra pause. Hey, listen, Ak, you're new to this? Diddy's going to hit you up eventually. I said, what do you mean? You don't know? Diddy's gay. That's what they told me. That's what they told me back then. This was the conversation. And the whole time I remember hearing it, and I remember the office I was sitting in Complex, and I'm like, how come you have so much information about him, his get down, who he's tried, situations he's been in, but nobody says this publicly? It's one of those unwritten, unspoken things. Fuck it. But they gave me the warning. I never met Diddy. The closest I came to meet Diddy was Diddy trying to tell me I should link up with him in London. I'm not gonna lie, that felt like it was a backdoor tie special, right? Obviously, I was talking some smack about his side chick, who he later called Shorty Wop. That was Young Miami, and I was like, he was like, yo, come party, playboy. Now, I don't know if he thought I was fabulous, but I don't think I look that fabulous. I don't know what's his type, though. But back in the back of my mind kept echoing the same things being said by those people who unsolicitedly was telling me, watch out for Diddy. Never ended up meeting with Diddy. First time I ever spoke to him, he was in lockdown with Tekashi 6ix9ine. Tekashi 6ix9ine passed him the phone. First words he said to me, what up, playboy? Documented. My story doesn't change. Why do I say that? I say that because in 2023, or late 2023, and then 2024, when he gets indicted, the whole industry act like they were shocked. Oh my God, what? And I felt that was a little bit fake. Felt it was a little bit fake. Because the majority of these people who have been in this industry and been all these parties and really like been around these people, they all tried to warn me, but they did it off the record. They were like, yo, just watch out. Let me just tell you this one story. And you come to figure out when, in the age of now, we're looking at the Epstein Files and trying to figure what do we extrapolate from that. Well, what do we extrapolate from the whole Diddy situation? Now, granted, let's be honest about the whole Diddy thing. Diddy was exonerated of the worst things he was accused of, which is sex trafficking and also racketeering with a criminal enterprise in terms of sex trafficking, kidnapping, car bombing, all this other stuff. But he was indicted. The question I ask is like, why is everybody acting surprised when I heard y'all warn me and talk about this off camera? Well, I'll tell you the simple answer. Well, Diddy was touting a spirit brand named Ciroc, owned by Diageo. Everybody wanted to be a Ciroc boy. Diddy had a huge, portfolio of not only artists that he's worked with historically, but his business acumen, along with other things, made him a valuable person and also person you didn't want to go against. So nobody talked about him. So everybody sat by while Diddy was doing his thing. And it's so we've not heard one person said I heard in 2017. I just came off YouTube. Well, one person in particular that would know. But a few people like, Diddy. I'm like, huh? Go back, watch my videos. I all tell you, I'm like, what? I don't know if I named Diddy at the time because they were so scared of Diddy. I'm like, I'm not going to name Diddy. I just got in the game. But my point of this is that everybody knew, but they all acted surprised once he got indicted. And that's why I get to the JayZ conversation. Because the same thing like I didn't know about Diddy, and I'm not saying that Diddy and JayZ are equals. I don't know. But I look at the conversation not being had as eerily suspect. Because it was the same thing I was thinking back when I heard rumors and back channel talk about Diddy, but no one would bring it to light until he gets indicted. Everybody booked a Vlad TV podcast just to talk about it. To me, that was fake. So here I am. We're now faced with this. It's not like people or I are just grabbing and reaching for straws at this, thing with JayZ. We're going off what other people are saying. We don't know. I genuinely don't know. I've seen JayZ one time. I go to watch Kendrick Lamar when TDE felt like, they probably needed Ja Boy. When Dave Free was escorting me around the building at the Barclays, Kendrick Lamar, he's doing all type of stuff. I'm seeing him play the piano. I'm like, Kendrick can play the piano. Okay, that's cool. I look up and I see there's a little murmur in the crowd. They're like, Hove. And he's in a skybox, but he was wearing all white. And I see him walk to the front And I could see him looking at Kendrick, and I don't know if it was like Illuminati, Rock Nation ritual, but JayZ being there at the Barclays at the time was almost like a rite of passage for Kendrick. You made it. Jay approves. One of the greatest. Now you're one of the greatest. Obviously, that approval happened many years ago, but I remember being there and the murmur in the crowd. Everybody started looking up to catch a glimpse of Hove. I don't know JayZ. I can't speak to his character. I've heard stories. I don't know. I never lived it. I wasn't in, quote unquote, the industry at the time. When I came here in Context, it was around 2001. I came right before the towers got hit. JayZ and Nas, that was the conversation. So I come in the middle of this heated rap battle or this heated confrontation between two amazing artists. I have to learn about his come up, me delving into hip hop culture because I love music, really all music, but like hip hop culture is such an amazing, fascinating culture. Like I fall in love instantly with a lot of his even previous works, even at that time. I fall in love with Reasonable Doubt. Fall in love with The Blueprint. Fall in love with Volume 2. I fall in love with the idea of a guy whose mantra was, they didn't want to sign me, so I created the label. I took that to help establish my media brand. If Hot 97 and Power 105 don't want me, I'm going to create my own media company where I'm the star. I think it worked out fine for me. And I will say partly is because if I looked at a motto and a blueprint, all pun intended, that JayZ created. But I'm saying, I don't know too much about these stories that, these are these back channel stories. When I got told about Diddy, they said Diddy tried an actor. They said there's this actor, and by the way, I don't want to mention that actor's name, but that actor was never the same. But he was super hot, pause, when he first got on. They said Diddy invited him to a certain place, and Diddy tried him. Maybe this actress told his story. I got to look, but I don't want to just throw a name out there. And I was just, stop it. That never happened. And I remember they looked at me because I was the naive non-industry guy like, oh, you don't know, do you? You don't know. Years to come, I realized I didn't know. So all I'm calling up on is my peers, the people who grew up maybe a little bit older than me. They covered JayZ, front and back, the Elliott Wilsons. And I don't want to call no more names. I'm going to stop with the name calling. But these are people who I've gotten my information about this guy from. I'm not calling none of you out of tear his legacy down, besmirch his name. But are any of these conversations worth having? Or do we have to sit by and wait till possibly an indictment hits? Or are you just scared of the conversation at all? Not saying nothing is there, but again, when I see people unwilling to speak about the conversation, hey, was Jay on some creepy shit? Was he one of those guys who would try to get a pretty girl that may have a little bit of talent, kind of groom her and, try to get with her while she was maybe underage and kind of because do y'all remember the story of Cassie? Now, granted, I believe Cassie was overage. But that story in itself is a little bit sick. If you guys don't know the whole story, I was telling my friend about it today. I was giving a little soliloquy on, hey, never bring a girl around your boss consistently, especially if your girl's bad. At a point, your girl gonna start looking at how your boss moves and how you move, how you answer to him, and that might not turn out well. I used the idea or the story of Cassie and Diddy as an example. Cassie really got brought into this industry by Ryan Leslie. Ryan Leslie saw this young girl. She was pretty. They had whatever they had. She wanted to get into the music business. When she wanted to get in the music business, you had JayZ. No, not JayZ. Sorry. Freudian slip. You had Ryan Leslie bring Cassie. You could imagine he's like, yo, I know everybody. I know Puff. I know this. I know that. He brings Cassie around Puff. Cassie's probably seen a different type of lifestyle, a different type of money, a different type of opulence, a different type of success. It is Diddy over the top. 15 people waiting on him. Best suites, penthouse suites everywhere. Limousine riding, jet flying. It is opulence at the highest level. Ain't no more food and beverage. This is exquisite shit. Over time, what happens is that Diddy plotted on Cassie. He wanted her. He created scenarios and situations that supposedly him and Cassie was going to work on music. Think about it, what we know about Cassie now. Cassie was a pretty girl. She looked good, but her musical talent, she sounded like a dying goat. Diddy wanted her. Diddy created the idea in her mind of this young woman chasing a dream. Hey, I think you're musically talented. All while he wanted to pursue her to get him in his harem. He was dating at that time Kim Porter. He creates a situation. We got to go to Miami to go do some shit in music. It's just me and you, though. This is business. Your boyfriend can't come. Leave him at home. They go to Miami. Diddy tries her. Diddy kisses her. She says she didn't know how to feel about it because she had a man. She's actively cheating. Diddy wines and dines her, takes her here, takes her there, gifts, gives her everything that the lifestyle she was chasing would present. Gives her everything. Over time, the story comes to pass. Ryan Leslie's cut out the picture. She's now Diddy's girl. There's conversations to be had about that. I always shout out Nicki Minaj. I always said that, I believe Nicki's a complete raging bitch. I've heard that about her personality based on how she's came off to me. She is that. But I've also heard she developed this tough exterior because niggas used to try her. Nicki was a little bad thing. All these popular rappers who were on a pedestal at that point, they're all trying to fuck. Oh, yeah, I'll rap with you. Yeah, let's get in the studio session. Oh, yeah. Late night. Get the runner to go get all the liquor. We're going to get drunk. Fuck a song. This happens all the time. The guy who wants to fuck the girl basically acts like he's into her career after he's donkey fucking her off the fucking, the mixer table. Who cares about the song? That's his girl now. That's his bitch. That's one of them. I heard Nicki had to turn down those advances many times. She had to be a bitch. Hey, stop it. Are we recording or what? No, enough. No more shots. Let's go. Let's fucking go. Let's get this shit done. Came with a different attitude. Fortunately, her skill was enough to keep bringing her back in those rooms because you know how it goes. You try a chick once or twice, she ain't going. Fuck her, man. Next, on to the next. But Nicki's skill kept her in the game. But she had to have that hard exterior. And good thing she from Queens because, Queens women usually exude a little bit of masculine energy. She was a little bit of a raging bitch. That continued with how she dealt with people in the industry. So with that understanding, I understand why she might, not all the time she comes off as very just like docile. But that's the conversation that really needs to be had, right? Like it gives you the context of why Nicki and, it should be asked and even understood. Like think about other situations, even outside Cassie and Diddy. Was that something that was standard? If we think about L.A. Reid and some of the accusations that we heard later about him, that was exactly what they were saying. What is tantamount to Harvey Weinstein in the movie industry, where he would look at young actresses who were beautiful. Maybe the talent wasn't always there, and some of them it was. He would use his power and the fact that he could make or break their career to get them in compromising positions. Hey, let's go work on a script in my penthouse. 11:30, they walk in, jazz music is on. Hey, the script is on the table, but let's get a couple glasses of wine. Let me hear about you and your life. 2 hours later, he's getting a little eggplant sucked on. That's a conversation we should talk about. No, people don't think that type of, they talk about, we're in this woke era where people talk about or, all this whatever culture, toxic culture. And we talk about the behavior that people might exude that kind of contributes to that. Right? How come It's cool when they to talk about it when they get caught, but maybe not before. When Bill Cosby gets caught for, supposedly hitting them chicks, he was Steph Curry with the Quaaludes, the Spanish fly. Everybody acted like, oh shit, he was doing that. Then you hear, and I've heard, Bill Cosby wasn't the only one. He's just the one who died for everybody else's sins. All of them niggas was hitting them chicks with the Spanish fly and the Quaaludes. They were basically using their power and influence and also like drugging chicks. That was a culture. But we don't hear much conversations about it. Let's get back to music. Let's get back to the JayZ conversation. The conversation I want to have is, well, we see what happened with L.A. Reid. Well, we see what happened or what's accused of, but with Russell Simmons. We see what is accused, right, of with the R. Kellys. We see what's accused of with Diddy. I think we've heard Jay-Z's name a little bit too much for us not to talk about, hey, listen, are any of these things true? Are any of these things just completely made up by a random caller that happens to fall in the Epstein file? Are these things just completely out of the scope that we should just say, this is illogical. This is just someone, this is the Matrix targeting him. Or perhaps should we say, let's go back and evaluate what this guy did. Now, I understand there's a lot of people that's running what I call interference. And I love watching media run interference for powerful men. Because I always think, damn, what business deal they got coming up? Love Charlamagne, idol of mine. Let me remove the word idol because it feels like I idolize. Like, idol. It is, right? Like, I look up to Charlamagne. I've always done that. But I don't expect Charlamagne to have a neutral or even have a qualitative conversation about Jay-Z's past and Jay-Z's history in the music industry. Why? Charlamagne was also pretty much caught handing the cookie jar in the casino saga where Jay-Z was trying to get a bid. Charlamagne showed up and gave riveting speeches about how the council members should vote to approve this because Jay-Z's vision is great and this and third. So there's some synergy and alignment there between not necessarily Roc Nation and Charlamagne, but the entities that are trying to push and put Jay-Z in a certain place and Charlamagne. Is that paid? I don't know. Maybe they're just good friends. Now, even though back in the day, there was a conversation that Jay-Z may have gotten Charlamagne fired from Philly radio after some criticisms. I don't know what's going on, though. I just want to have conversations. The conversations just seem to, I just want to have conversations. So I'm asking really my peers. I'm like, hey, listen. I wasn't really around because I'd say what I've heard. And I have heard whatever, but you guys lived it. You guys had, it's like Wendy Williams when Wendy Williams came out way back and said, let me just tell you the truth. There's a few gay motherfuckers in here. We call them homo thugs, okay? She said Diddy was gay, and everybody felt like she was a liar. But you know why? And this is where I bring Charlamagne back into this. And again, this is not a call out for Charlamagne. I love Charlamagne. What Charlamagne has always told me, one of the most valuable advice he told me, which was told to him by Wendy, and this is why I say Wendy is the queen. You're either going to be loyal to the industry or the people. You can't be loyal to both. And if you're loyal to the people, you're going to have uncomfortable conversations that maybe the industry won't like you to have and might make you an enemy. For Wendy Williams to repeat, and again, she was hearing much more than you think. Hey, listen, Diddy's on some gay shit. It was so taboo at the time. She supposedly ended up losing her job. Years come to pass after we get the details through a racketeering indictment through the Department of Justice. We get to find out Diddy was rubbing male semen on his nipples. He was playing in it. He was writing it. He was using like it was Play-Doh. He would be whacking off to other men, even though they were supposedly, having sex with his girl at the time. At times, he requested 2 men. He's never requested a female escort, always men. He would instruct his girl, find the guy with the biggest penis for me to watch. Now, I don't know. These days we live in a very sexual fluid world. Some people say, nah, that's just cuckism. Cuckism. Yeah, that's cuckism. Hey, call me old school. I was born in Spanish Town, Jamaica. That's gay. Wendy was right. She was brave enough to say the thing about the culture that nobody wanted to talk about because it was underground. Way back then, she looked crazy until later on we're like, she was right. In fear of what the industry was doing to silence her, she realized, I can't really tell you what's really popping. She had credible information on another person. This was a time where being gay, and there's nothing really wrong with being gay, but these guys were living double lives. These guys were lying and fooling the public. Not that people should be invasive to be like, pull somebody out of the closet necessarily, but, she felt like these guys were in a culture that it was all about keeping it real. These guys weren't keeping it real. Wendy Williams wasn't homophobic. Wendy Williams was someone who actually had a huge gay audience. She used to say this thing, how you doing? With like this little weird hand thing, which was clearly to pander to the gay people. So she loved gay people. But she liked to call out the guys who were acting super macho. Hip-hop at the time was way more homophobic, and she would say, hey, you guys are pretending. Some of you guys are gay. There was an episode that came out that she said, listen, there's a couple gay guys here. And she said there's even one that's in New York. He's linked to hip-hop history. I can't say his name because I think they're going to sue me or they're going to try to take me off the air because every time I tell y'all the truth and the industry don't want the truth or have those conversations because they're uncomfortable and at the time it's taboo, they're going to try to do something to me. So I'm just going to mutter it. I'm going to hum it. The gay guy who's acting like he's super thug is Everybody listen to that. They try to match it to every name in the industry. Come to find out, years and years and years later, there was always rumblings and people knew who she was talking about. But it was a man known as DJ Mr. C. Now, that person was not only a DJ within the, radio sphere of New York City at the time, it was pretty much a center of hip hop, but he's Big's DJ, Biggie, Notorious B.I.G., Frank White. For that guy to be gay is like, what? It's not nothing wrong with him being gay. But everybody looked at Wendy to say, why are you talking about that shit? Why? Why are you talking about that shit? Years later, DJ Mr. C gets arrested by the NYPD for soliciting, as Charlamagne always quoted, street meat. He would meet up with transgenders in his car and have a bearded, saucy Santana type motherfucker suck him off on the side of the road. Public lewdness and other things would ensue. Now, a lot of people pointed out as the world was changing, hip-hop is such an intolerable place at the time. This guy who's been living a lie, if he wants to go buy some transgender man bussy, why can't he do it in the comfort of a hotel? Well, maybe someone who works at a hotel might see him walk in with this transgender and be like, oh, you're homosexual. Why can't he do this in the comfort of his home? Well, he probably has a wife and he's been living a lie. Why can't he do it somewhere else? Well, he has to stay hidden, and that's why he got arrested. But what does that prove to y'all? Wendy Williams was right. Wendy Williams was trying to have the conversations about a culture going on that nobody wanted to accept or even discuss, and she was 100% right. I'm going to keep bringing it back to JayZ. I don't know if JayZ did nothing. JayZ might really just be a guy who people want to see him go down. I don't know, but I wasn't around. So all these people, when I keep calling out my peers, I want to hear y'all talk about it. What do y'all think about his dating practices? How he got close to artists who kind of needed him more in the music capacity, and we heard that he's pursuing them romantically at the cusp of 18? Was that the standard? Because what people don't want to admit is that all these people, they'll be super judgmental on the current folks, the current youth. But nobody finds it odd that Russell Wilson, another Freudian slip. Not Freudian, actually, but that Russell Simmons was in his mid-30s and he was pursuing 16 and 17-year-olds. That's not the conversation. Was he just an oddball? He just gets to chill in Bali? Was he an oddball or was that the culture? It's not odd that supposedly Beyonce was 16 or 17 when she allegedly met Jay. Supposedly in a musical capacity. Couple years later, they're allegedly already in a full-blown relationship. JayZ's already established and already over the age of at least 25. That's not odd. No one wants to talk about that. There's no conversations to be had about that one, right? I'm talking to you about a culture. And everybody else who I'm asking to speak about that because maybe they were around at the time. And just like how Wendy was like, this is what's really going on. I'm not saying to be Wendy because I know every time you ask these guys, by the way, I keep saying what Joe and Jada does, what the Bodega Boys over there at that podcast does, what Charlamagne does, what I do, what Joe does, we're all gossiping. We're all doing what Wendy Williams did. We're just men. And we try to do it a little bit different. And some people try to do it more gangster than others. But we're all doing the same thing. But I'm asking, could we have those conversations? What I believe is being suppressed is that there is an era of hip-hop where there was a lot of pervy, sexual deviant, not only behavior, but relationship that seemingly were predatory and also borderlines on extreme grooming. That is often ignored because most of these people involved in this act, they are either now moguls, they've been removed from this industry, and even reshaping or framing a narrative around some of their behavior at this point would ruin an era. None of these guys want to come out and say, yeah, there was a lot of creeps that were the executives. Straight up. Now, I'm one that's definitely going to say don't believe every allegation. But I do think if we have 15 allegations, 30 allegations about people during a specific era, maybe we should start having a conversation about the culture that existed then. How did no one then say anything? How does that come out in 2015? How does all the dirt from the 90s come out in 2015? Maybe the people that were in or around in the 90s and early 2000s in this industry either were complicit or they turned a blind eye. Either or, still disgusted. That's only the conversation I'm begging to be had, but it won't be had. Now, when Kendrick Lamar says something, right? Kendrick Lamar says, Akademiks is compromised. We all kind of understand what he's trying to say and he means. He's like, that's Drake's homie. We're not going to get a fair shake over here, but whatever. It's Ak, I fuck with him. At least that's how I took the bar. It was just like, Ak's usually a really guy who will be in the middle, but I can see he's going to be on Drake's side. He's compromised. Well, if that was, allowed and excused, are y'all not compromised for JayZ? Are y'all not compromised for Rock Nation if y'all can't have these conversations that I'm even begging y'all to have because I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't even ask y'all to talk about it because I talk about shit that niggas won't talk about. But I wasn't there. So I'm the person who now every single time an accusation comes out, I'm fielding. I'm like, is this all right? Why the hell is his name in the Epstein Files? Now everybody runs like interference. They know what interference is. They try to get ahead of the story. Hey, y'all are stupid to even believe this. Y'all are fucking stupid. Get some brains. Low intellect. Y'all believe anything. It's an unsubstantiated rumor. Well, isn't it kind of like how that starts? Jimmy Henchman back in like 2001, when the FBI went to him, we could look it up. The FBI, in a Q&A or interrogation with Jimmy Henchman, I believe, they asked, do you have any information about Puff Daddy fucking kids? And at that time, it probably was like, wow, what the fuck are y'all talking about? Later, we get to find out the police were always trying to figure out what the fuck Diddy had going on sexually. There was something to be talked about. So, not that I need an answer for any particular individual, but I'm saying, are we waiting for an indictment or are we waiting for 50's doc? Because 50 has said he's going to do a documentary on JayZ. At least he's down to have a conversation. Now, we all know it's going to be biased. And this is why I always look at his friends. I'm like, don't let the guy that don't like JayZ tell the story. How about y'all tell the story? Maybe y'all put some nuance to it. But from what I'm hearing from all the other people in the media, there is no story to tell. Okay? That was my opening monologue. Welcome. I know it's late. I know it's late. Yes, JayZ supposedly has a doc on the way. $50 Cent says he's going to make a JayZ documentary. He says, damn, they got your man Jay in the Epstein Files. I got to do a doc on this shit. Okay? Interesting. Going back and just showing a little proof of what I was saying. Jimmy Henchman asked about Diddy. Boys, let me just see. It was like in 2001. Was it Jimmy Henchman? It was something on Smoke and Gun, I believe. Let me see if I can find it. Smoke and Gun. Drug lord claimed feds quizzed him about the sex life of Sean Diddy Combs. This was published in 2013. 2013. In an affidavit, and here's the affidavit. This is James Roseman. This is Jimmy Henchman. They said the questions in this proffer session, and look, it says proffer right here. So the defendant reluctantly went to a proffer with the government. This is in 2011, right? 2011. He went to a proffer session with the government, and at the proffer session, he says the questions were not only about maybe his criminal involvement with certain things they were having inquiries into. It got into some people they think that he may have some proximity to. They say questions became even more bizarre when the prosecutor asked about entertainers' sexual preferences, including but not only Sean Combs having relationships with underage boys. Interesting. I'll digress for now. But the conversation won't stop. Welcome. How are y'all doing? I know it's late.